Last week, one of the bulls had a bit of a sore foot, but with that now behind us, and the neighbours here with their combine, it was time to think about baling some straw. So Dad hopped on the baler, and I had to get ready to chase him.
Literally as one job finishes, another one begins. I've just finished stacking the hay in the shed and I can in the distance hear the unmistakable drone of a combine going. Dad has got the baler on and we've sent him to start baling up behind. The straw doesn't look too bad. We'll go and have a look at it at some point, but it's not as much as what we'd usually expect, which is, you know, I guess fair considering the year, but it looks pretty good, all things considered. But because Dad's gone baling, we're gonna have to soon go and get some straw. So I need to put the wreaths on these trailers ready for then. Right, so that's them wreaths on, ready for another day. When we've got a few bales done, maybe like a field or whatever, I can go and start bale carting and Dad can carry on baling. But you know something else that happened this week, which is crazy? I got interviewed on the news, live, twice. They actually rang up and they said that they were looking for someone who was kind of young, a farmer, and they wanted someone well respected within the industry. But they were busy, so they got me instead. And if I can find the clip, well, here it is.
Now, today, the BBC's focused on farming. Across radio, online and television, we've been running special programming called Farm Watch. As part of that, we've got a series of reports finding out what pressures farmers are facing. Well, our environment correspondent, Hugh Caswell, is with one farmer in Leicestershire who's worried about a very big issue. And we can join Hugh live now. Good evening.
Yes, hello and welcome to Folly Farm. We're just outside Kirkby Mallory in Leicestershire. This is a 450-acre beef farm. They have around about 400 cattle overall. And although in the last 20 minutes or so we've felt a few spots of rain here, that is a real rarity. They've had barely any so far this year. So I've spent the day here on Folly Farm finding out how that very, very dry weather has been causing them problems. The Herricks have been farming here since 1961. James is the third generation of his family to do so. This year, though, has been particularly tough after one of the driest springs on record.
So I know it doesn't look too bad now, but if you'd have been here a couple of weeks ago, this would have just been completely brown.
And ultimately this is your cattle's food, isn't it? You've not been able to grow as much of it.
Well, exactly, yeah. Grass growth is severely affected by how dry it has been, because ultimately we need some moisture of some sort to make it grow for the cattle to eat. So what we've got here is our grass measurements that we take weekly so that we can make sure that we can budget enough grazing for the cattle going forward. The pink line that you can see is last year's grass growth and the blue line is this year's. And this peak that we've got is when we'd ordinarily make the most of our winter forage, and you can see that this year we had quite a deficit in grass growth.
So that was earlier on today, and James is here with me now. James, we got a sense there of how you really have gone from one extreme to the other in the space of just 12 months. It must feel like you can't catch a break at the moment.
It does very much feel like that. I mean, we've come off the back of two incredibly unseasonably wet years, and then when we got into a dry spring we took it and thought this is fantastic, but ultimately it's ended up causing us some real issues.
And these are the sorts of extreme swings in weather that we're told are going to become more common. So tell us a bit about how you're having to adapt your farm to that.
Yeah, there's no point in us pontificating as farmers and hoping about what should or could have been. We're now having to look forward to the winter and try and make plans to get us through what we've got coming up. But then ultimately long term, we're going to have to look at both planning for the extremities of what we could experience as well as what we hope we're going to get.
And what does all of that together mean for the bottom line? Presumably your business is taking quite a hit.
Yeah, because we're going to now have to go and purchase feed that we would ultimately be hoping to make to replenish whatever we're not going to have for going into the winter. And that's going to take a real big hit on what we're going to be able to do financially.
And is that the sort of thing which ultimately you can see being passed on to the consumer and people are going to notice themselves in their pockets?
I think so eventually, because as we obviously have these issues here, it elongates the supply chain, and then ultimately as that happens it gets passed on to the consumer further down the line.
James, thank you very much for having us here today. Plenty more still to come from the BBC's Farm Watch. Right here though, they're still crossing their fingers and hoping for a bit more rain.
Oh, thank you, Hugh. Well, unfortunately for them, potentially there's another heat wave coming. We'll have more on that later in the programme.
The main reason why they came is because they've been doing something called Farm Watch, apparently, on East Midlands News. Now, it's a bit weird for me because we generally tend to watch West Midlands News because we're on the border, and it depends on what telly you are watching in the house as to which news you get. So to be on East Midlands News is a bit weird because in the kitchen where we generally tend to watch the news, that's West Midlands. But they wanted to come and talk about the drought and, you know, the effect that that's having on both livestock farmers with a lack of winter forage and cereal farmers with a lack of grain yields and so on and so forth. So kind of exciting, I guess, to speak to people. I've never done a news thing before, so it was a bit of a strange one. But I actually kind of enjoyed it, I'm not gonna lie. And I just hope that I didn't do too bad a job and that people enjoyed watching it. That's the, and that I got my message across. That's the important thing, is that hopefully people listened. Never guess what I can see here. Can you see that? Just going up the road? That's a John Deere tractor on a low loader. Typical. Just had a phone call from Dad because the bales are incredibly light because the straw is fairly dead and really ripe. And this bale kicker on the back of the McHale baler's got 2 springs on it, and it's not letting the bales out because it's just holding them up. So we've got to go and take a spring off. So it'll let the bales out and they won't get the net wrap ripped. Right, so we took it off. I hope you don't want it back on because it's broke. So we did this, undid this bolt here, and unbeknown to us, there's like a nut, but it was hidden inside of that washer. So we probably should have slackened that off, but we didn't. We just tried twisting it and it snapped the end off. So I'm hoping that it works fine because you can't have it back on. So we'll see. Take this back to the yard, see what we can find. I might have to weld that up, but there's no rush if it works. When I was younger, we used to have our own combine and whatever else, and we'd be baling, and my brother would work, and we'd be like cultivating and whatever else all at the same time. My dad used to moan that he'd spend all his time running around after everybody else, making sure everyone was still working and fixing breakdowns. And I feel like the roles have reversed. He's going off baling, and I'm just running around with the toolbox. I just got to watch him here because you see how it's hanging a bit low? It's not registering that it's flicking back up because we took a spring off on the box in the cab. So we just want to make sure that it keeps clearing, because the last thing we want is to end up with a bale there, because with those belts, they just burn the wrap off if you're not careful. I'm not sure if you can turn that sensor off in the cab. It'd be handy if we could, because it's just going to drive you mad all day if not. But it'll be him that gets driven mad, not me, because I'm not driving it. There we go, into the bale. You see, it's clearing fine. So it's not the bale that's the trouble, we just have to try and turn that sensor off. This is what it was doing to the bales before. You just see it just burns off. The vast majority is only about a foot of net wrap on that. We'll rebale that one. He's got me to roll it out for him. Chuck that back there. Make sure I remember that. Put that with it, that'll help. Which way is it going to be rolled? I don't know, whichever way I roll it, it'll be wrong. That'll do it. You can bail that back up again. There's one over there that's got a little bit of a rip in it, but I think that one will be all right. So I'm going to start and cart a few bales of straw. Dad is keeping up with the combine really well, so he's kind of over there now. They're about in the last field, and I'm going to go and get the drone up because this combine is insane. And I know I'm nerding out about tractors, and I don't like tractors, so I appreciate that people are going to think, what the hell is going on here? But it is amazing. It's got one of them Mac-Don headers on. If anyone knows anything about headers, you'll know that they are the Rolls Royce of combine headers. I was just sat in it last night and I was watching it and I just couldn't fathom. It was amazing. It's just incredible. This thing operates on its own headstock. So its own headstock goes on front of the combine and then it will float in every direction. So it's almost gyroscopic in the way that it moves. And it flexes as well. And there's some massive stones in these fields, these big old boulders like this that are just on the top. And it just comes up and it just goes over them and back down again. And you don't touch anything. I just cannot for the life of me work out how it does it, and it doesn't suck them up like a normal one does. And it's also traveling way faster than the old header. So they used to have just a normal combine header, and that would operate at about like 4.5, 5K in a crop a week. And they were doing 6.2K an hour. They were good crops, especially for this year, sort of 10 ton. So, and honestly, I'm in awe of it. Anyway, check it out, because it's bloody amazing. my God. You won't believe what I can see. Actually, you probably can. What is that? What is it? You guessed it. Oh, it looks like a crocodile. What is it? Oh, it's a dinosaur. A dinosaur. That's nice. Best bit about the dinosaur is I've already found the blue one. So that's 2 more to the list. And I have noticed that in Dad's tractor, there is a heap of balloons. I've not counted them yet, but there's a fair few in there. We're going to be getting close to that 50, we really are. Someone who's incredibly intelligent might be able to tell me this, but let me just find that bloody dinosaur again. It's fairly intact, right? But then it's split out along the seam there. Is there a thing that helium, when it gets so high, I don't know, expands or something like that, and then that's why they split and they just come down? Is there science behind that, or I'm just doing like bro science in my head here? Is that a thing? Quite often you see that they've kind of ruptured along those seams, and I'm just wondering if there is, I don't know, if that's part of the problem here. But actually no, the problem is that people let them go. But you get my point. Is that why they just come crashing down all of a sudden, because they just rupture? This is, in my 34 years of life, the first time that I've ever been entrusted with starting the big stack. Last year I did a little stack of bales, but I didn't get to do the big stack. Dad has, well, generally all my adult life stacked in the yard. But when we used to be more of us, because it used to be like my brother used to work at home and we used to have a member of staff as well, so there's 4 of us, we'd have those guys carting in between. Dad is stacking the yard with the old Matt Bro teleram, and I would be in the field with this, loading at the other end. But since there's only been 2 of us, Dad's generally stacked and I've always ran the tractor in the field. But with him baling and running around because it's hot, trying to get more water drinkers into cattle, I've got the job of stacking on my own. Stacking's fine when you've done a bit and you've got a good stack going. It's easy, but getting the stack started, that's the art. That's where the art works at. If I'm honest, I don't think I've done too bad. I've got this about right up there. There's one that sticks out a bit. I probably can push that one, but I think that's a decent step. It's only kind of 6 inches. I probably got this one stepping a bit too much, but equally, if I'm going to step one, I feel like the first one's the right one to step, because that just gives me a bit more sort of foundation. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along, trying to make myself feel better. To be honest, I think I'm pretty lucky. I get to stack with that thing. I mean, when they used to stack with the Matt Bro, Dad would be in the field loading with a masted Manitou with no proper cab. It had a roll cage and it had like rebar above. Does that make sense? Anyone who knows what I'm talking about? And they'd be loading in the rain and whatever, you just put like coats and it'd be cold and wet. I mean, we wish. To be honest, actually, cold and wet sounds like a good idea. I'd take that right now. But they'd load with that. They'd have old tractors, like 30k tractors. They used to bring it back from Farcoton, which is near Market Bosworth. Anyone knows Battle of Bosworth? It's past the Battle of Bosworth, further on than us. So it's like 6 miles probably, and I used to do that with old 30k tractors and bring it all the way back here with these bale trailers and all that old kit. I probably shouldn't moan, to be honest. I'm pretty lucky just to have it as easy as I do, where it's just coming from next door. The roles have resumed. Dad's finished baling, so now he's on the carting and back stacking. That leaves me solely in charge of loading trailers and collecting balloons, of which I've got some more. To add to the dinosaur, I've got like a light gold, and then I've got another one. It's like a yellowy gold. I mean, I said last week we'd start and find a few more when we got the crops off. This is just getting mad. We're now on to field number 3 of 7. But we're on sort of smaller end fields as well. I've done 2 20-acre fields on my own before Dad got here. And then we started this one, which is a fair trek. We're having to go right round the road. It's a long way. And then we've got the ones that are closer to home but bigger and got a lot more straw in. One thing we've done a bit different this year is we've changed the bale size. So normally we would be at about a 5-foot round bale, but we've dropped it down to a 4.5, mainly for 2 reasons. Firstly, when you're baling behind these big combines and they've got a 30-foot header and there's a good crop and it's big swaths of straw, if you've got a 5-foot bale and then by the time the beeper's gone off and you've stopped and you've put the net wrap on, it's way bigger than 5 foot. So with having 25-foot trailers, it's tight getting them on. The other thing, and probably the biggest thing, is that when we've got them in the bale shredder in the winter, if we've got 5 foot or 5 foot or whatever bales, and then we put them in the bale shredder, you put one in the main bit and then one on the backboard ready to flick in afterwards. If the one at the front isn't going in very well, it's not feeding in, you want to reverse it to try and get it feed a bit better, it'll end up pushing the one off the back because it's really big and it's just only stopping on. So with a one that's about 4.5 foot, it will stay on that back a bit easier and it should be able to make everything feed a lot better. So 4.5 foot, I'm hoping, should work a little bit better for us. It's worth pointing out as well, Dad ordered the wrong net wrap, which is going to drive me mad all winter, because ordinarily we'll have a net wrap that goes edge to edge. So it starts right on the edge of the bale there and it works across and stops here. But he's bought the bloody cover edge stuff, which I hate, because when you've got those bales on their ends to unwrap them in the winter, that gets caught underneath and it drives you mad. So with everything else considered, a very fun winter ahead. Probably also should say that now Dad's finished, we know how many bales we got. There's 1,553, I think he said, altogether. If we then take off about 10 that he had to rebale, and the neighbours have had about 40, so about 1,500 bales, which is kind of what I was hoping from the whole lot. So that's a positive news story, I guess. But at 17 a load, it's going to take a few loads to get them in.
So with plenty of diesel being burned, there was still a hell of a lot of bales for us to chase. Which wasn't too bad a job when it's 30 odd degrees outside and you're in an air conditioned cab. But when all was said and done, the bale stack was growing. So for once this year, it actually seems like something was going our way. Until next time, Body's Farm, over and out.